to the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where we champion education, celebrate community, and unite the very best of humanity. Fueled by world-class military precision and cultural excellence, the Washington Tattoo produces unforgettable immersive experiences, creating an atmosphere for people, organizations, and businesses to connect, network, and build impactful relationships. We invite you to listen to this episode of the Washington Tattoo Podcast, where the world's musical traditions come to life. Thank you so much for joining us. Hi, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Washington Tattoo Podcast. And again, like usual, I have my fantastic co-host, Stuart Warmington, over in the UK. Stu, how are you today, my friend?
Everything's going well. Obviously, the sunshine's not lasted, and is it any wonder why the Brits go away at summer? So, we're just about coming into June, and we've still got the rain. So, roll on August when we can fly to a different country.
I do find it funny. I remember going to St. Lucia a handful of years ago as kind of a retirement and 10-year anniversary present to my wife and I. And the amount of Brits and folks from the UK that we met in St. Lucia that were there going, you know what? We don't know if we're going to go back. It's just too beautiful here. It was hilarious.
Sounds about right.
Today, we're super excited. We have a fantastic guest. So Macy Bennett is with the incredible Oz Scott Highland dancers from Australia, and she's been a part of the Washington Tattoo story really almost since the very beginning from the performances. And she's been a great friend to the tattoo. She's been a fantastic spokesperson for Highland dancing globally, but also with youth and education, and has been a great resource for us in the Washington Tattoo when we do our educational outreach in DC public schools. So just want to say, Macy, thank you so much for joining us today, and we're excited to dive into this conversation.
Thank you so much. That was a very kind introduction. I'm so excited to be here.
Excellent. So I think, Stu, why don't you hop into the first question and we'll just take off from there.
Yeah, no, it's fine. So this is the first question we always ask, and it's probably one of my favorites because we get to know more about that person and how they got into their sort of craft. So, what was your journey into Highland dance and how did you get into it? Did you see something on TV or something, in your town? And when did you realize you had a passion for it?
Well, I also love this question. So I think I was really brought up with it from my family. I was really roped in from the beginning and had not much of a choice, actually. So in Australia, just most like the rest of the world globally, wherever you go, there will always be a pipe band and there'll always be a Highland dancing teacher. So it's perfect that no matter where you go in the world, you're sorted with friendships and a community because there's always pipers everywhere, which sometimes can be quite annoying for the neighbourhoods. But my family's from the Burdekin, which is a small area in North Queensland, Australia. And so my whole family was involved in pipe bands, and my granddad was in the pipe band, my mum, my auntie, and my mum and my auntie also did Highland dancing. And so as a kid, there was always bagpipes at our house. We were always at Anzac Days with my mum piping. So I didn't get much of a choice. I was just brought into it. But from the beginning, I absolutely loved it. And I think I was a very chatty kid, as I am now. Not much has changed. But I loved performing. And so it was my favorite thing to do. And I used to do ballet and jazz as well. And my mum, I remember this so vividly. She said I had to make a choice between Highland dancing and ballet and jazz. And I loved Highland dancing as a kid. I was only 5 years old, but I loved the competitive aspect to it, that every weekend we had a competition. And there was always something to work towards, unlike ballet and jazz where you had like competitions twice a year. And so I love that about Highland dancing, and I'm still doing it now. And I think as I've gotten older and I've been able to travel the world for it, my passion's just grown even more. So yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. And I really don't think I'd be living the life I would be without it, which is so crazy to say.
That's amazing.
I love it. It's funny. Stu, did you have something like that when you were growing up as a kid? For me, it was baseball or drumming. And I started my first I was in my first fife and drum corps at 6 years old, and kind of like Macy was doing parades and things like that every single weekend. Is it something similar for you?
No, I'm the same as Macy. I was brainwashed from a very young age. We're quite a big military family anyway, but my father being a drum major, used to take me to parades, And when he was leading the band, he put me in the police car leading it, or in one of the military vehicles at the back. And there was no, even, when used to go to school, at primary school, and the teachers asked a question, I'd always bring it onto the military music side of it. And it literally brainwashing all the way through my education. That was it. I was just blinkered. I want to be in the Royal Marines Corps drums. And there was literally nothing else. Had I not got in, I have no idea what I would have done. Absolutely no idea.
Absolutely no choice. Well, that was the same also. I was roped into playing the bagpipes part of it as well. And I remember as a kid, I was roped into it, and I'd be practicing, and Mum would be yelling from the dining room saying, "You've missed a doubling, you've missed a doubling." And I was like, "Mum, just let me play." And when I was little, I tried to blow so hard, I'd try to pass out because I never wanted to practice. And so as a kid, I used to think it was the nerdiest thing ever. But then when I got older and I was in high school, people used to think it was pretty cool. And I was like, oh, actually, I kind of like this now. So turns out the brainwashing was a good thing.
I love that. I think it's hilarious. So on weeknights and weekends during the summer, I would dress up in my colonial, tri-cornered hat and, the vest and all that kind of stuff for my colonial fife and drum corps. And then other weekends I would be going to hard rock and metal punk shows. And so it was kind of this like back and forth of, is it cool? Is it not cool? And I think it ended up turning out to be pretty cool. That's awesome. So let's dive in a little bit to championship Highland dancing. And I know that, in the competitive world, there are different styles of dance. There are different costumes you wear. There are different types of competitions. But can you just talk through what does it mean to compete in Highland dance? What did you have to do to create some level of success? And what did you do to practice and try to achieve the goals of being successful at it?
It's a big question. So Highland dancing, so there's so much to Highland dancing. Obviously there's all the tattoos and everything, but it also is a very competitive sport. So in a championship, which is my 4 favorite dances, you have a fling, a swords, a chanteuse, and a reel or a tullock. And so these are the big competitions that people train all year for. And so basically they release steps every year. So all the dancers do the same steps, the same dance for a whole year, and then the next year it renews again after the World Championships in Scotland. And so I think to be a champion Highland dancer, most people do it from the very early on. Most people have family, and so that's how they're involved. And I think just competing from a young age, and then to be a champion Highland dancer, I think is more than just being a champion. It's more than just the dancing. It's more than just winning a championship. I think to be a champion Highland dancer is the attitude and how you hold yourself in the community. And other kids may idolize you, and it's your attitude on and off the field to the sport and embracing it and being passionate about it, I think. So I think that's more being a champion Highland dancer in the competitions. It's more than just the competing or just the physical dancing. It's everything else that comes along with it.
It's great. I love it.
It's funny you talk about this attitude you have, and it was the same in any sort of military. The guys would be laughing and joking 1 minute, and then as soon as it's time to perform, it's like somebody just flicks a switch and they go on. And it's the same for the Highland dancers. You see them, the Edinburgh tattoo, Basel tattoo, literally just before they go on, before the doors open, everybody's laughing and joking, then doors open, and then it's like a different set of people. They just, that's it. They just march on, and it's people just can't get it in their head. So how do you prepare for especially more a competition where there's a lot more? It's not just a performance for the crowd. There's something at stake. So it's basically a 2-part question. So how do you prepare for that? And also something I've always wanted to know. So obviously all your movements have names and everything, but if you're about to start rehearsing a something for the tattoo, is it written down? How do you learn the steps? Is it just written down, or is it? I don't know how you guys learn your routines. I'm quite interested to know that.
Well, for this second question for that one, the tattoos are more innovative and more contemporary based. So we use the steps that were given in competitions that you learn from a very early age, but then you adapt it and make it different and make it interesting so crowds love it, and you do it as a team. So I guess competing, it's very interesting that competing, this answers both your questions actually. When you compete as a solo dancer. So it's just you on the stage, it's just you and the judge, it's just you against the world. But then when you do these tattoos, you come together and it's all about the formations and the lines, and you work as a team. So it's hilarious that one moment you're at a tattoo together, you're all laughing, you all dance with each other, you know each other like ins and outs, it's everything. And then a competition happens the next day and all of a sudden it's yourself. So it's just so different. But that's the best thing about it, I think. It's also being able to dance with each other, but then dance with yourself. And my favorite thing at competitions are after a championship and everyone is so serious backstage. And then as soon as the competition's over, everyone's at the beer tent and they're just loving life. That's my favorite thing about it, I think.
That's great. So just going back onto the learning your routines.
Yeah.
Obviously, for myself and Mark, if we're drummers, we'd get the score, it'd be written down, and we'd learn the actual physical music and then put the movements in. Is anything written down for you, or does somebody just say, right, at this point we're going to do this, then we're going to do that movement or that movement?
Yeah, well, it takes a lot of developing to do the dance. So we send them through a lot of videos, I know with Oscott. So you're learning through a TV screen and trying to get it exactly right. And then you come together and hopefully everyone has the basic knowledge of the steps. And then someone just dances it and you watch them and that's how you learn it. And then you put it in. And then I think the best part is being given a position and that's how you remember it, being in the lines together, and that's how it all comes together. So it does take a while, but when it comes together, it's just absolutely amazing, and there's nothing quite like it, I think.
Interesting.
I love it. So it's funny, when I remember coming into one of the rehearsal sessions for the Tartan Day tattoo in April in 2024, and Cheryl was, the director of Oscott, is working you all through the routines and the choreography. And so like what you just said, you have the individual practicing and training that you have to do, and then you got to put it together with everyone else. How do you try to do that? And is there a difference between your individual training for a tattoo and how you put that together versus the individual training that you do specifically for a Highland dance competition? What does that look like?
Oh, absolutely. And it's also a completely different type of fitness. So I think championship dancers, you're given the set dance and you practice that over and over again. And a championship dance is very strong, where tattoo dancers, you're dancing on a stage that is made of concrete, so it's not as good for your legs. You don't have as much bounce. You're doing movements over and over again, like reels that you wouldn't typically do all the time. So you have a different fitness altogether. So it's interesting that, especially in Scotland, the World Highland Dancing Championships are straight after the Edinburgh Tattoo, and people that compete at the World Highland Dancing Championships have to be so fit and have to keep practicing their championship dances while at the tattoo, because it's a completely different kind of fitness. So coming together for a tattoo is very different. They're very different styles, I think. So it's very important to maintain that base level of championship fitness for it. But it definitely helps. It helps both, actually, either hand in hand.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that. It was one of the things that always hit me with the Old Guard was every performer at the Old Guard is a very accomplished superstar drummer. But when you're playing together as a line, you've got to find the common ground where you can start to actually make everything mesh together so it looks good. Whereas maybe somebody's of individual ability at a certain dynamic or a certain style or something like that is maybe stronger than another player, but they have to kind of back off on an individual quality to make sure that the line actually works as a whole. So I would imagine it's probably something similar where there's different talent levels at very specific techniques in Highland dancing. And when you're putting together the show, some folks have to bring their level up. Other folks may have to bring the level down a little bit and kind of massage the individual talent to make it look good.
Yeah, absolutely. And Cheryl Roach is absolutely amazing for that. And I think something that Oscott definitely prides itself on is working as a team, and that everyone tries to look the same and that our lines are always sharp. And she's just amazing at that, pulling that together, and just an incredible director in that sense. So it takes a lot of work, but as I say, when it happens at the end, it's just magic. I don't know how they do it.
So you've been doing this for such a long time now. And obviously at some point, the same with myself and Mark, you have this massive career, and then sometimes you get these challenges or stumbling blocks. And so have you had any big challenges that you've had to try and, these hurdles you've had to get over, whether it be injuries or like pressure of competitions? And if so, how did you do it?
No, I think every single Highland dancer, or everyone in life, has their challenges, and there's ups and downs to everything. I think sometimes mentally, because you're given these championship steps every year, you do the same steps for a whole year, you perfect them, that's all you do every year, like day in, day out. You just practice the same dances and the same steps. Obviously, sometimes it's not very motivating. And I think Highland dancing is such a hard sport that you can put in so much effort. But if the judge doesn't like you on the day, then you won't place. And I always say that I wish my mum put me in like basketball or like a running race or something, because if you win, you win. It's not based on someone else's opinion. So I think sometimes it's always so disheartening if you've put in all this effort and all this practice and you come to a day and it's the results just based off one person's opinion. But that's what I also love about the sport, is about no matter what happens, you have to dance for yourself, because you can't dance for anyone else, because you don't know the outcome that day. And you may have danced the best you have ever danced, but the judge, it all just comes down to what they think is the best and someone else's opinion. So I think that's something mentally that's hard for every dancer after a competition, thinking you did well, but not having the places, and then going back to the whiteboard the next day and then having to fix it and go back to square one. But I love it. I love that you have to do that and that there's always something to work towards. There's no one that's ever perfect. So that's one thing that I think most dancers struggle with. And then the next one, physically, I've had a few injuries over the year with most people, because Highland dancing is so hard on your body. And I think it was last year, 2 years ago, I had plantar fasciitis on my foot. So I was in a moo boot for 3 months. And then last year I was all good, working towards international championships. And then I did a big leap, land on it funny, and tore 3 ligaments. So I was back in the moon boot again. And I think I remember being so upset, not because I was in the moon boot, but after you get out of it and you do all these exercises and this physio and you're working towards something, and to have something like that happen is so disheartening, and getting back is even harder when you lose all your fitness. But that's just part of it, I guess. And I do love a challenge. So when these challenges happen, I love just getting back up there and giving it my all. So yeah.
I think as a Highland dancer, you need to have that motivation within you. And this boils back down to that passion. You know, if you didn't have the passion, you just go, do you know what? I've had enough. I'm not doing it anymore. But it amazes me, even in the pipe band world, where, you know, there's always one winner. There can only be one winner. And they go, yeah, I came 6th or I came 8th. And the next weekend they're out again, doing it again and again. And I've never competed in a competition, so I've got no idea mentally how hard that is on somebody just to keep going out and out and out. But like you said, when you get an injury, it's even worse, because it is down to your mental strength to say, right, I need to come back. I can't do that now, and all that physio. Yeah. So it's, you know, kudos to you and the rest of the team for being able to do that.
No, absolutely. I'm a big believer that no matter how fit you are physically, if you aren't mentally strong, then I don't think you'll make it. I think that you need to have thick skin to be in dancing, no matter what style of dance, actually. So I think all the Highland dancers do really well to get up on the stage. No matter what happens, you get up, you put a smile on, you put on a show, and then the next day you go back, keep working hard and do it all again. So that's what I love about. That's the beauty of the sport, I guess. But yeah, you have to have that passion. And I think that's why we have such a strong community, because no one would be doing it if they didn't love it. So yeah.
Amazing. So Stu, you just unveiled something new to me about you that I had never known. You've never competed in drumming, huh?
Nope, never. Which is probably not a bad thing, to be honest.
The next competition, Stu, you're gonna get pulled out now. You've just revealed yourself. You've just revealed yourself on camera, so watch out.
Why would you come back without?
Well, it's funny. I mean, you kind of saved yourself some mental torment. I would definitely have to agree with Macy. Like, you go through these, you know, competitions, and you definitely have to have that mental approach. And I remember competing in fifing and drumming as a kid. There used to be New York State competition, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Connecticut, Pennsylvania, and you would win if you won a regional, meaning a smaller than the state competition. Then you were eligible and you can go compete in the state competition. If you won the state competition, you'd go into the Northeastern competition. And then way back in the day, there used to be a U.S. national competition, but those no longer exist. But I remember having to do the different styles of music, where you started off with breaking down your drumming rudiments, which is like your double stroke roll, your paradiddles, and you had to actually break the rudiment down from slow, fast to slow over a 3-minute period. So you were timed that at your starting point and to your top speed had to be exactly 1.5 minutes. And then from your top speed back down to slow, it had to be another 1.5 minutes. And you were scored on your timing, your stick heights, your volume, your consistency. And then after that, you had to break down either a 2/4 drum solo or a 6/8 solo, or both, and you were just constantly scrutinized on every detail. But I think it's interesting because the style of music that you had to play was very restrictive, and it had to be this very traditional style of music. And I think that kind of rolls into our next question, interestingly enough, because I would imagine in Highland dance, you have these very, not super restrictive, but at least styles that you have to fit into. And then in tattoo world, I guess it's more an open box. But how does music play a role in kind of the different styles of Highland dance?
Oh, I think it plays a huge role, and I think that's why I love doing tattoos and choreography so much, because it's so different to the traditional things we always practice all the time. So obviously our traditional dances, our competition dances, we have a set tune for every dance, and you practice to a piper, you practice to the same CD, the same backing track for each one. But then most of the championships, you have a live piper playing for you. So I think in a competitive nature, they might be holding their grace notes a little bit longer, and you have to dance to the piper, which sometimes I think is so annoying because I have the tune in my head and I'm just like, can't the piper just dance to me? And so that's why it's kind of good about it, that you have to be able to listen and have that musicality in a competitive sense. But then in a tattoo sense, the music's so different. You're dancing to violins and you have all these different drumming sounds and basses, and I think then staying together as a team is completely different. But it's so amazing being able to dance and have a little bit of creativity when you are used to being so structured and traditional in the competitive world. So yeah, it's great. I love it.
It's very cool. I know I've heard different choreographers put together some very, very modern dance moves and hybrid them with the Highland style. So I love watching that. It's very cool.
Yeah. No, it's amazing, and it's cool to see how much it's grown over time, and every year there's always something new and there's another trend, and it's just fantastic. I know that it will last forever, so it's very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the stuff like the Edinburgh Tattoo from 20 years ago to 10 years ago to 2 years ago, you can see the styles changing. Although the traditional style's still there, you just get these little hints of the era we're in, where people are taking nods from other people or different styles. So which is great, because even in the most traditional craft, you do need to keep moving forward. Otherwise, it'll sort of die a death. So if you're on a desert island and you had a bottle and you had to put your message in a bottle of your most favourite memorable moment in Highland dancing, what would that be to share with somebody else?
Oh, there's definitely so many memories. I think from a competitive sense, I think last year I was in the Champions Fling for the Australian and International Championships when I won the championship, and that was just absolutely amazing. Looking out and seeing all my friends in the audience and everyone's clapping, and there was just no feeling like that I've ever experienced. So that was just absolutely incredible. But then I also think in a tattoo sense, every tattoo I've done, standing in a finale with everyone by my side and hearing Auld Lang Syne every single time, no matter what happens, I always get goosebumps. And it's just, that's also a feeling I can't describe. It's so beautiful. And absolutely amazing. But one of my favorite memories as a child actually was at the Melbourne 2012 Champion of Champions of Australia. And this is a big deal. And I was like, I don't know how old I was, maybe 12, 11 years old. And they were calling the results. And of course, I was making friends with people from all around Australia. And that's why I loved Highland dancing. I got to meet so many people and I love talking. So it was my favorite thing ever. And they were doing the big results. It was the big Australian Championships. And I was, they called out my name, Macy Bennett, first place. And no one walked onto the stage. And my mum was like, oh my goodness, where is this kid? And I was under a table with all my friends trying different lollies. And so I had no shoes on and it was, Macy Bennett, get on the stage. And so I had to run onto the stage and I was standing there with my trophy and I had no shoes on. I was bare feet on the stage. And so that was my favorite memory ever. I was like, all right, never doing that again. But it's just the nature of Highland dancing in the community and like it's just got such a good spirit to it. So that was absolutely awesome and a very fond memory I have as a child.
Yeah, I know what you mean about the tattoos, because, myself and Mark, we'll do our day-to-day job, whether it's, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier or whether it's in the UK parades or, even stuff for the royal family. But it's not until you go to a tattoo where you meet other people, other acts, you're meeting people from all over the world. And like you say, when you stood there on the finale and the lights go down, and it's just the tattoo. Without doubt, the tattoo was the most favorite part of my journey, my 22-year career. Did them all over the world, and it is what I live for, because you are meeting people from different backgrounds, and you're learning about new groups, and it's such a cool thing to either travel to Australia or New Zealand or UK or Basel or America, just to go and stand and chat with other people. But like we say, your passion, you're just going out there to enjoy yourself. It's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. But it's also so crazy that you go to a completely different country, you don't speak the same language, but for some reason you have this shared passion for Scottish culture, and it blows my mind every single time. And I remember one of my first Auscot experiences was in 2019. I went to Russia and Crimea, and that was my first time seeing different culture like that. And so it was just amazing that these people had such a love for Highland dancing on the other side of the world, when you couldn't even say hello in the same language, but like you dance and it was like the language in itself. So that was just pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So incredible. So I have a question about this competition and being barefoot. Did you keep the lolly in your mouth while you received your award?
I think I had to quickly scoff that lolly down. I don't think my mum was very impressed, actually. I think I got in a lot of trouble, but I had a lot of fun at the time. So I hope she doesn't watch this and see how much fun I had.
I love it. And it's funny because another piece of this too is we haven't actually had any questions about any Australian slang, because I remember my first time in Sydney, Australia was 2005 with Top Secret, and the amount of slang coming from every Aussie's mouth, I didn't know what people were talking about.
That's the same being in Scotland right now for university. I thought I was on a flight the other day to Spain, and I thought everyone was speaking a different language, but they were actually just had a Scottish accent, and I had no idea what they were saying. So, but it was very eye-opening, because my favorite thing about the Washington tattoo is obviously the tattoo itself, but going to the schools the next day is always a highlight, and being able to educate the next generation, and so they know what's happening in the Scottish world, in the community, and that we're from Australia, that just goes globally. But we did a lot of talking about slang, Scottish slang and Australian slang, and that was some of my favorite parts, I think.
It was great. It was so much fun to watch you all do that, which goes really well into the next question. Again, when you're talking about balancing your passion for dance, school, work, you're in uni right now, how do you try to juggle all of that?
I'm actually a terrible person to ask this, because I cannot say no, and I just love being involved in absolutely everything. But I think that's the beauty of it all, just being involved. I think knowing your priorities, I think nothing is a hassle if you love it. So I think just being able to have this passion and know your priorities is how I keep everything balanced. I think it's crazy because we all have other jobs, and so we come together with Highland dancing, and everyone has a different life, and so this is a different life. So it's keeping that life maintained, but also having this on the side, which I think is never a chore, because everyone loves it so much.
Yeah, I love it as well. So what are you studying currently?
I'm currently studying a double degree of law and communication, so I'm in my 4th year. But don't ask me how much study happens, because if you talk about balance, I think it's more Highland dancing and university. It's not very balanced at this stage. So, yeah.
So, Macy, we touched on it earlier on that, your passion started when you were very, very young. So if somebody was to approach you, like you say, you speak to people at the schools with the Washington tattoo, what advice could you give like young children, whether it be 6, 7-year-olds upwards, if they wanted to take up Highland dancing?
I think just give it a go. I think Highland dancing is such a unique sport where it combines all styles of dancing. You have to have turnout and be technical like ballet, but you have to be flexible and strong like jazz, and it's just with a little bit of a traditional twist on it. So I think just have a go, put yourself out there, and I think as you get older, just keep being you, and never be scared to do anything. I think if you're on stage, the worst that can happen if you make a mistake, but then the sun rises again tomorrow, or just audition for the tattoo, because the worst that can happen is they say no and you just try again. So I think there's no harm in just giving it a go. And that's what I live by, just having a crack at everything and just giving it your all.
I think it's important, when we're sort of promoting our craft, that we do put that time aside for the younger generation and not just speak to our peers and everybody else we know. I think when you do school visits or even at tattoo, when kids are coming up to get their photograph taken, you spend that time and make them bonds that because I remember speaking to somebody. And I remember that now, and I was only about 6, but that had a lasting effect on me. And I see it all the time now, where people are joining up because they spoke to somebody when they were 6 and they were inspired. So I think it is important to go there, have a go, have a bit of fun, and just see what happens from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's so important to educate the next generation and keep it rolling so that everyone else can have just as much fun as we've all had and keep it going for years to come.
Yeah.
Incredible. So how do you personally stay motivated to keep doing what you're doing at the level that you do it? Because obviously you've got to have your ups and downs. You've got to hit some burnout. You've got to figure out how to reprioritize. But how do you stay motivated to keep the level as high as you have?
Well, I think one is just by loving it, by purely loving it, that every day you go to your dance training, that you're going in with a positive mindset and you're just loving it. And if you're not loving it, then I think that's when you need to stop and take a moment and figure out why you aren't loving it or what's been happening and how you can change that. But I absolutely just love it. And I think competing since I was so young, but getting to an age where now I can start doing tattoos and there's an extra incentive to travel the world and meet more people, is just absolutely awesome. So I think now it's traveling the world. I mean, at the start of the year, we did the Washington tattoo, and then we did New York City Tartan Day. And then I was just in Norway. Then we have the Basel tattoo coming up in July, and the Edinburgh tattoo, and then the Belfast tattoo, and then Dusseldorf. So it's never ending. And I think if you keep working hard, the possibilities are endless and the opportunities are endless. So I think that at the moment, that's the motivations, but there's always more to do. And as I said before, that there's no such thing as a perfect dancer. So that's what I love. It's just, you just keep on going. You can never stop. You've never reached the top. There's just always more to do, and can be done. So that's what I love about it. And I think that's what keeps pushing me and motivating me.
I love it. That's such a great response. I remember the first time running into Swiss drummers and the way they played, the way they held the sticks, it was just so different. And then obviously that language barrier you talked earlier, it didn't matter which language we spoke because the drumming and the music actually just allowed us to communicate with one another. And I think that's where that science meeting the arts piece, like it does, it gets into psychology, sociology, and you just start feeling this amazing energy from people that are just around a positive experience. And I think creating the platform for that to happen is what keeps us driving at the Washington Tattoo to say, look, we know all these fantastically talented people that are from all over the world that legitimately make the world a better place every day because of their positive attitude, because of their energy, because of their talent. How do we start to amass these people in these pockets of the world to basically inspire and keep other generations motivated? And you're such a great ambassador for this. So I love your understanding and like you're very, very wise and mature for a budding young professional. And we're super, super proud to like be on this journey with you.
Well, I think that's what the Washington Tattoo does so incredibly well, is educating the next generation. And I think that just shows that that's one of its core values, is being able to reach out to the community and help the community and educate. And so that's just super inspiring and something that I'm so grateful that I can be a part of from the very beginning and watch it grow and how much it's grown since 3 years ago. So I just can't wait to see what happens in the future. It's amazing. I mean,
tattoos are so special. And I don't know if you know, but me and Mark first met at the Edinburgh Tattoo in Sydney in 2010. And previous to that, we did a lot. Oh, I did a lot of tattoos, but we never used to speak to anybody. We'd finish the tattoo, go and have some beers, disappear, not speak to anybody. And it wasn't until that tattoo where I had a massive sensory overload because got talking to Mark, and then we saw the Middlesex County Volunteer Drummers, and then we saw the King's Guard, the Top Secret. And for me, there was just so much going on that I wanted to know a bit more. So then we started talking to different people, and what we now 12, 13 years down the line, and we're still talking to we've got this partnership going now, and so this is the friendships that you make that just go on and on just because of a tattoo. I mean, it's amazing. But so I was going to ask you what you've got coming up in the future, but you've just said you've got all these tattoos going on. So
Yeah.
I'm going to change my question
crazy.
to, how do you relax when you're not performing? Or let's forget about your studies for the time being. We'll put them to one side. How do you relax, and how do you just get away from it all?
Well, the tattoo blues are a real thing. I'm sure you both have experienced it, that you're on such a high for this whole time, and then you go back to your ordinary life. And it's the one thing where I guess people do this professionally, so they do it all the time. But then we do this amazing perform in front of thousands of people, and then you just go back to your ordinary life. And it's so crazy that some people don't even know what Highland dancing is. And it's just like you have two completely different worlds. But I think downtime is very important. I think sometimes it gets so crazy. So just be able to relax. I love running and swimming. I actually just did a marathon on the weekend, which was crazy, but I find that's great. Another form of exercise to release that's not Highland dancing. So I think it's so important to equally have other things you're passionate about, to keep yourself busy, to relax a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's incredible. So you do have things coming up. We talked about Basel, talked about Edinburgh. So what other things are coming around in this calendar for Macy, like competitions, performances? What's that look like?
Well, currently being in Scotland, I'm so lucky because there's like 5 competitions on every weekend. So you get to have your full pick about what you want to do. So, which is just amazing. I love it. So definitely I haven't been to any of the Scottish games before. So I'm very excited to attend some of those when I'm doing the tattoo. And I'm really excited to also compete at the World Championships, which will be so much fun to just be up on the stage with the best and the best of the world. So, as well as all the tattoos on the side. So it never stops, but I absolutely love it.
Fantastic. Well, I think this is a great way to close this out, but how can people, if they want to know more about you or more about Oscott and they want to follow you, what are some ways that they can get connected with you?
Definitely follow Oscott Australia on Instagram. Can send anyone a message and they'd love to have a chat about all things Highland dancing or anything. All of the girls are absolutely amazing. We have such a great community in Australia, and I think that just extends to around the world, and a great Scottish community with everything. So send a message whenever. If anyone's ever had a tattoo, I love having a chat. So sometimes too long of a chat, it's a bit dangerous, but I think it's so important to talk about these things and extend the passion for the future.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Macy, so much for your time. This has been a phenomenal interview. I know, Stu, I learned a ton. I know I learned a lot about you. Also, we're going to talk about this competition thing some more. But I am blown away, Macy. Your presence and your wisdom and your talent are above their years. So it's incredible to watch you grow. And we're fans here, and we can't wait to see you again back at the Washington Tattoo. And I hope everyone can check out the Washington Tattoo on our website, www.thewashingtontattoo.com, and also our social media on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and X. So again, Stu, thank you very much for your time. Macy, again, we'll see you on the next episode.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much.
Hey everyone, this is Mark Riley again. We want to share a great opportunity with you to get your business name out to our listeners. We are looking for individual episode and yearly sponsors for the Washington Tattoo Podcast. So if you love music, history, and want to support military veterans, please take this step with us and consider being a sponsor. For information on that, please email marketing@thewashingtontattoo.com.
This message is from the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs. For PSAs on the best services available to veterans, go to VA's new radio outreach page, news.va.gov/outreach/radio.